Welcome to the Deep Dive, the show where we take a monumental stack of research, articles, and notes, your sources, and distill them down to the essential, fascinating insights you need to sound truly informed.
Today we're tackling something just fundamental. It's ancient, it's everywhere. It's this universal, deep-seated need we have to tell and consume stories.
Right, why do we do it? We spend so much time, so much energy on narrative,
Yeah.
and it's got to be more than just, simple entertainment.
It goes so much deeper.
And we've got sources from, everywhere. Evolutionary biology, neuroscience.
Cognitive psychology, deep philosophy, you name it.
And our mission today really is to get past the how stories affect us and dig into the why. Why are they such an urgent necessity for the very architecture of our minds?
Yeah, that's the question. I mean, if we just stopped telling stories tomorrow, would humanity even function?
Exactly. That's the level of urgency we're talking about.
So in our dive today, we're going to look at this from three main angles. First, we have to tackle the biological case. Is storytelling an actual evolutionary adaptation?
Okay.
Second, we'll shift to the cognitive and social world. So how do stories build our sense of self, and how do they act as this scaffolding that holds society together?
And then the last one, which might be the biggest question of all, the philosophical function. How does the basic structure of a story help us deal with, the ultimate human mystery, time, chaos?
That's the big one. Okay, let's unpack this.
All right, let's start at the very beginning. Evolution. We usually think of it shaping our bodies, right? Our thumbs, walking upright. But these sources are suggesting our love of fiction might actually be a mental trait.
Something that natural selection honed.
Yeah. So what's the advantage? How does being a good storyteller help you survive and, reproduce?
That is the key question. When you look at any art through an evolutionary lens, you have to ask that. And we can start with art as a whole. Darwin himself suggested that any behavior that's high cost seems useless, but is beautiful.
Like a bird's song or intricate art.
Exactly. It often signals some hidden function. And usually, that function is about survival or reproduction.
This is where we get the cognitive peacock tail idea, right, from Geoffrey Miller.
Precisely. The argument is that these really complex, resource-intensive things like making art or weaving patterns or telling a great story, they were initially driven by the need to find a mate.
You're signaling a better brain.
You're signaling quality, a faster, more interesting, more capable mind. That makes you a very desirable partner.
Okay, but hang on. If it's just a status display, like a peacock's tail, does that really explain why I'll binge watch 8 hours of a show by myself on a Tuesday?
Right. That doesn't look like reproduction in action.
So is that theory, maybe, a little too narrow for how we consume stories now?
I think so. And that's where the theory has to shift, and the function deepens. The peacock tail idea might explain the origin of creativity, but its lasting function is something else. It's related to what we call cognitive play.
Cognitive play.
Yeah. Art acts as a supernormal stimulus.
Yeah.
It gives us this rush of patterned, organized information that our minds just crave, even more than, day-to-day reality.
So it's not status anymore, it's about stimulation.
Exactly. And when you engage with these intricate patterns, the rhythm in music, the steps in a dance, the cause and effect of a plot, it's actually remodeling your brain over time. It's fine-tuning your mind to be faster at recognizing patterns.
It makes your brain more efficient.
Basically, yeah.
That makes so much sense. We find it rewarding because our brain is literally getting a workout. It's a built-in reward system. And we see this in other primates too, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
The chimp painting experiments from the 50s are just fascinating. You give chimps brushes and paint, and they get completely absorbed in it. They create patterns, rhythm, symmetry.
But there's a catch.
A huge catch. They only threw themselves into it if they got no external reward. No food, nothing. The second you introduced a treat, they either lost interest or, started painting the food.
So the act of patterned play is its own reward. It's baked into the nervous system.
It is.
Here's where it gets really interesting. If story is a form of cognitive practice, what exactly are we practicing for? Because we all have this idea that fiction is just escapism.
A way to avoid reality.
Right. And if that were true, shouldn't stories just be happy? Simple wish fulfillment? But that's not what stories are at all.
Not at all. Story worlds are, almost by definition, just saturated with trouble. Conflict, obstacles, high stakes. They're all about disruption and danger. And this brings us right to the problem simulation theory.
Which suggests that fiction is basically a flight simulator for life.
A low-danger practice environment for high-stakes problems. It's a mental rehearsal.
And it's a mechanism that's already running in our heads every single night.
When we sleep. That's right. J. Allen Hobson's work on the neurology of dreams is key here. We think of dreams as, dreamy or surreal, but he argued that they're often really focused on strong negative emotions.
Fear, anger.
Yeah, the things that trigger our fight or flight response. Dreamland is basically survival training.
And we have actual data on this, not just theory. The cat experiment.
Michael Juvet's research is the perfect example. He found a way to let cats act out their dreams during REM sleep. And what they dreamt about wasn't, sleeping in a sunbeam.
What was it?
It was a very narrow set of problems, basically. How to eat and how not to be eaten. They were stalking, pouncing, fleeing, fighting invisible things. It was all predatory and defensive behavior.
So our brains are just constantly running these high-intensity simulations, practicing how to survive.
And fiction just hijacks that deeply evolved mechanism and applies it to this infinite variety of social and moral and physical problems.
So we get to practice making these life or death decisions, who to trust, how to escape, what to sacrifice, without any of the real-world consequences.
Exactly. You get to take a short vacation from the pressures of reality, but you do it by paradoxically practicing how to manage those exact pressures.
That's a really powerful bridge from just surviving alone to the complex challenges of living in a group. So if stories help us practice survival, how do they help us, live together?
That's where narrative becomes this essential social superglue. We're ultra-social creatures. Our greatest strength is cooperation. And the psychologist Jerome Bruner, he talked about the transactional self.
Meaning most of what we do in the world is negotiating with other people.
It's all mediated through interaction and understanding others. And our sensitivity to stories is the main link between our own identity and, everyone else's.
So stories give our lives coherence. They tell us who we're supposed to be.
And how we're supposed to act. And fiction, specifically, is critical because it forces you outside of your own head.
It's the ultimate empathy machine. I mean, in real life, you only see what people do and hear what they say. You can guess what they're thinking, but you can't know.
But in a story, you're granted access. You hear their inner thoughts. You know their hidden motivations. It cultivates your sympathetic imagination in a way nothing else can. It makes you see the world from all these different, often conflicting points of view.
And that's not just some fuzzy soft skill. It's a measurable cognitive improvement.
The research is really compelling on this. Studies show that reading literary fiction stories that demand you engage with the character's inner world, it actually improves your theory of mind.
Hold on, can you just quickly define theory of mind for us?
Absolutely. Theory of mind is just our ability to understand that other people have their own beliefs, desires, and perspectives that might be different from ours.
And fiction sharpens that.
It sharpens that social awareness. Yeah. It makes you better at predicting and managing what other people will do.
So it's a mental workout that literally makes us better neighbors, better negotiators. That has huge practical uses for keeping a society running smoothly.
It does, because a society needs predictable behavior, shared ethics. Stories appeal to our shared values, and sometimes they can literally change the moral climate.
Like Dickens' A Christmas Carol.
A perfect example. It fundamentally reshaped how Victorian society thought about poverty and charity.
But stories also teach the rules, right? They promote cooperation by showing what happens, sometimes brutally, when you break the social contract.
They absolutely teach the rules of reciprocity and punishment. If you violate the group's rules, there has to be a consequence. If not, the whole cooperative structure just falls apart.
We see that all over early literature.
Oh, yeah. Take the suitors in Homer's Odyssey. They're constantly violating xenia, the sacred custom of guest friendship. It's the core of reciprocity.
They're eating all his food, drinking his wine, insulting everyone.
They take and give nothing back but injury. They destroy the host's ability to reciprocate, which basically proves they're unfit for civilized life.
So when Odysseus finally returns and, serves them their final feast, it's not just revenge.
No, it's a necessary ritual punishment to restore the fundamental social order. The story is an analysis of how hard it is to maintain cooperation, and it makes sure the community understands why that punishment was essential.
But if stories are that powerful, we have to talk about the dark side. They can be so persuasive that they just override reason. Plato worried about this.
He did. He worried that the greatest stories could do more harm than good, and that's the story paradox.
We have a blind spot for how much narrative structure affects us.
We really do. Think about what we call conspiracy theories. They're not really theories. They're highly invigorating fictional thrillers.
And they work not because of bad logic,
but because they are gripping, coherent, high-stakes stories They give meaning and structure to things that feel chaotic.
Which is why trying to debunk them with facts so often fails.
It fails because you're offering dry data.
Yeah.
You're replacing this thrilling narrative with a story void. A fascinating story that names the enemy and explains the cause will almost always win against a complicated, nuanced report. The better cognitive structure wins.
Which brings us to that final dimension, the structure itself. So, beyond survival or social glue, how does the architecture of a story help us grapple with the biggest questions?
First, we just have to recognize how universal that structure is. I mean, you find it everywhere, in every culture. This archetypal, predictable pattern.
The 3-act or 5-act structure.
Right. It imposes itself on everything from Greek tragedies to the latest Pixar movies, like the standard operating procedure for making meaning.
And within that structure, the most critical moment, it seems, is the midpoint.
The midpoint is the moment of greatest knowledge. It's the point of no return. It's often called the truth of the story, where the hero moves from what they fear to what they now must embrace.
They gain some piece of knowledge that they can never unlearn.
Exactly. And it changes everything that comes after.
That idea of irreversible change is so powerful.
You see it so clearly in a character like Michael Corleone. His story pivots on that one moment when he decides to shoot the corrupt cop and the rival gangster.
He gains this dark knowledge about himself.
He learns he's capable of murder and that his life has irrevocably changed. That knowledge defines every single thing he does afterward. The story structure forces the character and us through this profound, permanent change.
So we have this universal structure of conflict, change, outcome. What is this for on the deepest level? It seems like it's our tool for getting a handle on time itself.
That is the core idea of the philosopher Paul Ricoeur. He argued that narrative, what he called emplotment, the active organization of events, is our answer to the philosophical puzzle of time.
A puzzle. How is time a puzzle?
Well, think about it like Augustine did. The future isn't here yet. The past is already gone, and the present doesn't stay, it's constantly dissolving. Time is an aporia, an irresolvable difficulty.
We live through it, but we can't really grasp it. It's just a raw, messy flow of disconnected moments.
And the story fixes that mess. Emplotment is the mediation. It takes that chaotic, raw experience, one thing just happening after another, and it refigures it. It turns it into a constructed, meaningful sequence. A leads to B, which causes C. There's intention, there's causality, there's an outcome.
And that's how we make time coherent.
Yes. And that process scales from, writing a simple poem all the way up to chronicling the entire history of mankind.
And if story organizes our personal experience of time, then myth is where we go for the ultimate stable meaning, the big picture.
Right. Myths, what Mircea Eliade called the true stories of ancient societies, they reveal the blueprints for everything. How to create, how to act, how to exist.
And their main job is to secure the world against chaos.
They do that by allowing for a ritualistic return to the origin. The cosmogony, the story of the creation of the world, is constantly reenacted. By returning to that perfect whole beginning, the community ensures the renewal and stability of their entire cosmos.
It's psychological stability, but for the whole group.
And for the individual, myths provide the tools to face the impossible. They give you the symbols to confront what seems absolutely intolerable.
To assimilate your opposite, the parts of yourself you don't recognize.
Often that's shown as an ordeal where the ego has to die, like the goddess Inanna's descent into the underworld where she's stripped of everything and then reborn. Myths are our guides through the deepest psychological crises.
This has been an incredible deep dive. We've gone from, the tiny biological mechanisms in our brain all the way to cosmogony and philosophy. It seems pretty clear storytelling is not optional.
Far from it.
It's an evolutionary adaptation, it's cognitive practice, it's the glue for social life, and it's the framework we use to build meaning out of the chaos of time. It's urgent, it's pervasive, it is absolutely necessary.
So what does this all mean? Storytelling is this evolved system that speaks directly to our ultra-social selves, to our ability to process these high-intensity patterns. It gives our minds coherence. It gives us the language to understand the social world, who we are, what we do, and what the results will be.
We're compelled to tell stories because our minds are basically built to require them.
And we do it willingly, eagerly, because it's intrinsically self-rewarding.
Right.
Think about the immense effort a great storyteller puts in just to hold our attention. Someone like Dr. Seuss. He was famous for rewriting endlessly, draft after draft, just so a kid would need to turn the page.
That effort is all about locking the audience into that high-intensity pattern processing.
Exactly. So if that's crucial for our psychological and social fine-tuning for surviving, for cooperating. Should we maybe stop seeing that effort as just entertainment? Should we see it as an essential driver of the human mind's continuous intentional remodeling?
And can you, the listener, maybe recognize that cognitive remodeling happening in your own mind the next time you get completely lost in a story?
Don't forget to subscribe to Fictus Mictus.